Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Mel, and today I want to get your opinion on what series I should continue. So I've got a stack of about 10 series here that I have started and mostly enjoyed the first book, but am still a little unsure on whether I want to continue with the rest of the series. This could be because I haven't been as interested in the genre recently, or because I just didn't love the first book, or even that I just read them so long ago that I'm not sure if I really remember enough to continue on with the series. So I'm hoping that you guys can shed some insight on which ones are worth it for me to put forth the extra effort to go ahead and continue with the series. So I've got a thriller, a couple of middle grades, some YA, and some high fantasy that I want to talk to you guys about today. I will actually timestamp down below so that you can see each age category, genre category, and just kind of pick whichever one you are most likely to have read the books in so that you can tell me if I should continue. I think I'm just going to go ahead and start with the one thriller series, and that is Snowblind by Ragnar Johansson. I'm not 100% sure what this series is called. I have forgotten, but this first book follows a guy, So I can't pronounce half the names in here because this is translated from Icelandic, so a lot of the words and proper nouns of places and names are way out of my comfort zone for pronunciation. But basically this book follows a guy that has run out of ideas of what he wants to do with his life. So he decides that he is going to become a police officer. Once he finishes at the academy and is going to become a detective, he gets a job from this small, very isolated town in northern Iceland. This place is cold, and part of the year it is almost completely blocked off to anyone because you can't really get in or out for all of the snow. Once he gets there, it's supposed to be a really sleepy town. Not a whole lot is going on. And of course, somebody is murdered. And I really enjoyed the mystery part of this book, but I felt like there was a lot of character development that could have been explored that really wasn't, and some things that were overly explored to be red herrings that ended up having nothing to do with the story and were just a bit too focused on to truly be red herrings and to make things interesting. So I'm curious to know, for people that have read this series, does it speed up a little bit? Do the characters and their relationships get a lot more interesting and a lot more intricate? Like, what did you think of further books in this series, and should I continue, or is book one a great taster, and if I wasn't a huge fan of this, I probably won't be a huge fan of the rest? Okay, and next up are the two middle grade series that I'm not sure if I want to continue. The first one I was actually kind of surprised by because I loved her other series and the narration so very much, but that is How to Train Your Dragon by Chrisinda Cowell. And again, I absolutely loved the Wizards of Once series by this author. David Tennant narrates them and does a fantastic job. I have not seen the movie for this series because I've heard that it's pretty different from the book, but basically these Vikings and their kids are supposed to go and steal a dragon egg and raise this dragon from very little to become their companion and part of to be a warrior. Hiccup Horrendous Haddix III gets a dragon that is a little less fearsome than everyone had hoped for. So he and Toothless have got to try to work together to prove that they deserve to actually be a part of this like warrior group, warrior coven. So you tell me, is this series worth continuing, or if I've read Wizards of Once, is that kind of the peak of the game here? This one is really, really long series too, and while the books are super, super short, I would love to know if it's worth continuing before I put in all of the effort and the money to buy further ones in the series. So next up is one that actually only has 2 books out, so it may be a little bit more challenging to know whether or not I should continue. But that is Ship of Shadows by Maria Kuznar. And this book, best I remember, follows a girl that is kind of stuck at home and expected to be a certain way. And she ends up on this ship and off on an adventure to find a map of treasures. And it's a really interesting pirate story with a little bit of magic sprinkled in. Unfortunately, I wasn't just blown away by this book in the way that I thought I would be. I was really hoping that it would just be this whimsical, super fast-paced magical story that would just take me by the throat and not let go. And I didn't love the relationships in this one as much as I typically do middle grade stories. I didn't find it quite as fast-paced or engaging as I had hoped. I did really enjoy it. I still gave it like a 3.5 stars, so it wasn't a bad book. I'm just curious, is the second one even better? Or if you didn't like the first one, you might not want to continue kind of situation. Okay, so now let's move on to the YA series that I have here. The first one is Half a King by Joe Abercrombie. And I'm really surprised that I'm putting this one on the list because I've heard that the First Law trilogy is top tier, character development, grimdark, amazing. But I wasn't overly impressed with this book. To be an author so highly praised for his character development, I really felt like that was lacking here. I didn't necessarily believe Yarvi and a lot of his motivations and how he ended up where he was going to be. I still enjoyed this one. I still enjoyed the writing style, but I just never really got the motivation, and it was a lot of traveling, so it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. Again, this is a trilogy, so should I continue and finish out the trilogy or just move on to First Law and be done with it? So the next one is a book that I read so very long ago that I cannot remember more than the bare bones about it. And so if I were to continue on with this series, I would honestly have to start over. But I do remember really enjoying the book when I first read it. And that is Jacoby by William Ritter. Best I remember, this is a historical murder mystery style book where a girl is kind of roped into helping out this mysterious investigator that probably shouldn't be investigating to begin with. And I do remember liking it a lot and finding it very, very interesting and wanting to continue, but it's been sitting on my shelves for so long. The question is, do I bother, or is the series as a whole not really good enough to reread this one and continue? Next up is one that is going to surprise a lot of people probably, that I have not already read it. And my question is, should I continue with The Universe is a Whole? I read the first two books in the Grishaverse series, and I have read Six of Crows, but I haven't read Crooked Kingdom or Ruin and Rising or continued in the universe. So I'm sure everybody knows what this series is about at this point. My question is, should I continue and go all the way through with the newer books? Or once I read Crooked Kingdom, have I kind of met the highlights and can stop there? And lastly is one that I started for a read-along and sadly stopped at the last book in the read-along because I couldn't power through anymore. And that is the Truth Witch series by Sarah Dennard. This series is unnecessarily confusing and not exactly in the most engaging way. I read probably 50 pages of Witch Shadow and just did not feel it. I liked it even less than the beginning 3 in the series. And I know that there's supposed to be one more coming out, but we don't even know when that is. This follows a group of essentially witches, but witches in this particular world have truth magic and air magic and water magic. And so you can pretty much have any kind of magic. And it's a very intricate system that I don't really know how to explain without spoiling a lot of stuff, but I know it is a beloved adult/young adult series. Should I continue and read Witch Shadow in preparation for the last one, or should I just kind of call it quits now? You tell me. Okay, and now moving on to the adult books, which I'm sure is probably what a lot of people are here for. First adult series that I have started but haven't read past the first book is the Gunslinger series or Dark Tower series by Stephen King. Now, Stephen King is one that I've only read a few books from and I haven't overly enjoyed. He's very description heavy, and description heavy is just not really my thing, I'll be completely honest. This book is weird. I don't really know how to describe it other than it's kind of like a portal / Western fantasy. And while I was really, really intrigued by this one, I wasn't intrigued enough apparently to continue and pick up the rest of the series. However, I'm not sure if you can see them, but I actually owned the entire box set. So my question is, should I go ahead and continue these because I already own them and I did enjoy this first one? Or are you like, nope, the rest of the series just kind of ruins it for me, don't continue? The next one is another one that only has one book out so far, so it may be kind of difficult for anybody to give me help on this because I'm not sure that the second book is even out yet. But I'm just wondering, did I miss something in this book? Because I had heard such great things about it and then it just really missed the mark for me. So sell me on why I should try to continue. That is The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu? I am totally butchering that last name. But basically this book follows a girl that can speak and see the dead, and she basically earns her living by carrying messages from the dead to the living. She gets roped up in this mystery of why kids have gone missing and been found drained essentially of life and youth. I liked the premise of this. It's supposed to be about a library of the dead. Why wouldn't I enjoy that premise? But sadly, the library of the dead really doesn't play a huge role in this story. It's kind of briefly mentioned, glanced over, and we keep on moving. And the narrator drove me insane. She's supposed to be this really hip and cool and sassy, take no prisoners kind of teenager, but instead she just drove me absolutely crazy. So, what am I missing in this book? If you have gotten an early copy and have read the second one, should I continue? Or if I was so meh about this one, is it worth my time? And lastly is one that is going to have very decisive opinions, and I know that, but I still want to put it on this list anyway. And that is Gideon the Ninth by Tasman Muir. So this book I read for G's Patreon book club not too long ago, and I enjoyed it, but I did not quite understand the hype behind it. This book follows Gideon, who is kind of a necromancer, kind of not a necromancer, in space. That's how it's typically described. But what really is here is a locked one-by-one murder mystery I was not expecting. And that part of this book I really enjoyed. Honestly, it was the slang and the banter in this one that threw me off a little bit. It almost didn't fit this locked in high sci-fi setting, but I'm intrigued. So my question is, if you've read Harrow the Ninth, and I was intrigued by this one, but didn't absolutely love the writing style, should I continue? Is it better in the second book? A little less confusing, a little more engaging, or have I kind of understood all there is to see and it's just more continuation from here? So those are the 10 series that I need your help deciding if I should continue. I have stronger feelings about some of these than others, so let me know in the comments why or why not I should continue these series. Hopefully I'll be able to do a follow-up video on some of these series, and depending on how long they are, maybe read them in a week or do a second chance reading vlog. So you tell me below what you either want to see or what you think I should or shouldn't continue, and we'll see about making that happen later in the year. So if you liked this video, thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe, leave me a comment, and like this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.